All right, thank you. Hello, this is Elliott Tracy again. Thank you for joining me. We are continuing to discuss the Paycheck Protection Program and some of the new items that have come out over the last week. And we recently put together a write-up on the guidance that we received really at the 11th hour on Friday, May 15th. So about 5 p.m. Pacific, the SBA and the Treasury Department provided us a first version of the loan forgiveness application. And there were some many interesting points in there, and a couple this write-up we have kind of highlights really what we considered kind of our top 10, and there's far more things that we can discuss, but really some of the real high level and things that people had a lot of questions about. The first is this payroll paid or payroll incurred, and the use of the word payroll paid and incurred. We've heard a lot about that, and the application did clarify that they're actually considering it to be both. They're considering it to be payroll paid and payroll incurred are eligible for forgiveness. And so a very quick example is and initially we thought there was going to be this proration that we were going to have to do, but now our understanding currently is, if you received money today and your first payroll was going to be run 3 days from now, that full amount of payroll is eligible because it is in the February 15th through June 30th timeframe that everybody continues to talk about. But more importantly, it's in your covered period. It is within the 8 weeks. So that is a big clarification. It's going to make the administration a lot simpler because we will not have to prorate the items between periods, between the non-covered period and your covered period. The SBA also provided some further clarification for borrowers who have a bi-weekly payroll, and that is, or even more frequently if you're a weekly payroll provider. And that's this note that I have right here. You are eligible to use an alternative payroll covered period, which basically means you line up with your payroll. So I'll use the example. Let's say you get your funds today and your next payroll period starts on Monday. And so today being Friday, 3 days later would be Monday. What this alternative method allows is it lines you up with that. So your 8-week period actually starts on the day of your first payroll. And so it perfectly lines it up. What it also says then is that when you get to the end, if you have a payroll that is 3 days following your 8-week period, or 2 days or whatever it is, or say you even pay 5 days afterwards, they're going to allow you to include that in your forgiveness if you're using this bi-weekly payroll. And what they've said is that as long as you pay on the normal payroll date, then you're fine to include that even though it's outside of your 8 weeks, and that's because of this alternative method. It really should simplify things for some borrowers, and I think more importantly too, a lot of offices are just getting back to work, and so to be able to delay that payroll out just even a few days to where they're going to have more of a consistent payroll is going to be really helpful towards the hopeful forgiveness process. The other item that was clarified and had been kind of up in the air, but it was solidified, was this use of maximum payroll per employee is $15,385, which is $1,923 per week. There was a lot of discussion because there was kind of an apples and oranges in a way, where the payroll was calculated based on a monthly average and then multiplied by 2 times. That was how your loan amount was determined. So for quite some time, everybody thought that, well, the monthly average for $100,000, which is the maximum payroll under the forgiveness, when you looked at the 8-week period, would put you closer to about $16,000 because it was $8,333. That is the monthly average if you receive an annual salary of $100,000. That was changed, and it is very clear that they are looking at this on a weekly basis. And so the maximum per week is $1,923, with the maximum for an 8-week period of $15,385. Eligible payroll costs, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, it is including this paid and incurred. So payroll paid and payroll incurred. that is some very nice clarification, because when it said payroll paid and incurred, there was this, oh, both of those need to happen for it to be eligible. And so that's where that, proration we talked about came up. Excuse me. Another interesting piece and helped with further clarification was the lease payments. So the lease payments do include both real estate and personal property that are pursuant to a lease, and that lease must have been in force before February 15th of 2020. The big clarification here was that it needed to be personal property. And before, there was no reference to personal property. It was only reference to real estate. The covered mortgages, those include interest on real estate or personal property. That's, again, they're bringing that full circle. So this kind of ties in, a leasing company who's leasing automobiles versus, those may not, those types of companies may have pretty limited real estate lease, but the lease they have for the vehicles is far greater expense. And so that was helping out that demographic. It is pretty clear from the application as well that the PPP forgiveness does not have to be the entire amount of the loan. And so there was a lot of question, and there was some speculation that if you didn't spend all of the money, that you had to pay back the entire loan. The application is pretty clear that that's not the case. And so an example I've used, because it's pretty easy, is let's say you get $100,000, and right now our understanding is let's say you only spend 80,000 of it. So you spend 80,000, 60,000 of that was on payroll, which is 75%. 20,000 of that was on other, which is your rent, utilities. That's 25%. So under that, and the way the application shows it, and again, we are wanting to make sure this is completely true, but the way it appears with the application is that 80,000 you spent will be fully forgivable, and the 20,000 that you did not spend will be paid back. Another clarifying point was that full-time equivalence is actually considered to be 40 hours, and if you don't have 40 hours, then it's considered a half employee. And then a couple of final items. There's been a lot of questions about the EIDL advance and how that's going to work. Our understanding currently at this point is the advance will reduce the amount of forgiveness. So again, if you receive, let's say your forgiveness amount is $100,000 and you received a $10,000 grant, it is currently our understanding that your forgiveness will be reduced from $100,000 to $90,000, and $10,000 will need to be paid back because that's the EIDL advance that you received. And the final point I just wanted to make is they are providing some safe harbor, and I think this is really beneficial for dental practices because it's going to allow some relief in regard to getting employees back to work right away. And what this borrower and what the safe harbor refers to, and I have this note right here, is that if you cannot return all your employees to full time by the start of the covered period, you're going to be exempt from that as long as you can meet two criteria. And the first is that the FTE levels is that the borrower did have a reduced FTE level because of the pandemic for that February 15th through April 26th. That's going to be pretty easy or pretty simple to show because most offices had to close before April 26th, and so the FTE count was reduced. And the borrower was then able to restore their FTE count no later than June 30th. And what that's going to do is it should allow the borrower, it will allow the borrowers to be exempt and therefore to potentially receive full forgiveness, even though maybe right away they didn't bring all of their FTEs back to full capacity. So thank you. So as of today, May 22nd, we are still hoping for additional guidance. There still are a lot of things that need to be clarified, but we did definitely get a lot of clarification having the first draft of the loan forgiveness application. And from what we're hearing today, the 26th, we are supposed to be receiving an additional FAQs, which those FAQs can always be found at the SBA's website. And here you'll see effective May 19th. That's the most recent one. You can download the PDF, and it's a really helpful It goes through all the questions, and and it even provides footnotes for when items are changing, and those footnotes usually show up at the bottom. So this question was published on April 14th. Other questions were published later. And of course, at the end, you'll see the ones that were published on May 19th, which is the most recent, and that's this question 48. So this is all really helpful information. What we're being told is that there are a significant number of FAQs that will be coming out on the 22nd, which should hopefully clarify a lot of the things that we're continuing to address.